仲間をゴミっていうような奴らに同情なんかしない。
それが危険なんだ。仲間思いの奴がいたらどうするんだ。
Hello. This is the second part of things that you never noticed in Hunter x Hunter, meaning things I didn't notice and hope you didn't either. I'm making this one even more obscure, so buckle up. Link for the first one in the description. During the Hunter exam, Hisoka refuses to take his number 44 tag back and punches the already drugged up Gon, leaving him there. Gon then hides in a tree trunk to wait out the effects of the poison dart, visibly upset. This is the first time we see Gon display such negative emotions. He sits curled up, with his hand on his knee, partly hiding his face. We see him take a similar stance once more, later in the anime. Other than the similarity between his childish skulking and his deep rage, this way of sitting can also point to the darkness inside him growing, since we also see two other people throughout the series sitting in that exact way: Hisoka and Meruem, the two characters that are mainly used to foreshadow Gon's descent into darkness. Both Killua's father and grandfather are present in the Chimera Ant extermination, an endeavor that is by all means a suicide mission, yet they leave Killua behind, right before he was about to meet an enemy that they might have not been able to defeat themselves. Even though his father is quite controlling, he really meant it when he said that he was going to let him do as he wishes. Every time Netero activates his power, he prays at an otherworldly speed and then activates it. He even manages to pray with one hand after his left arm is severed. When he activates his final hand, the number 0. However, I noticed that when he raises his hand to pierce his heart and kill himself to activate the bomb, his hand follows the same form as his other prayers. Raise the hand up, form the sign for the individual prayer, and execute it. Raise the hand up, form the sign, and execute. Even at the manga, it's done in 2 panels to make the movement of the hand and the pauses between it clear. There's dozens of nods to the fact that the king is closer to a human than we initially believe, but I found 3 ways it's foreshadowed in the same scene. While every other ant is born from an egg sac, impersonally and impassively from the queen, the king that is much more close and important to her is born very similarly to a human baby, with the mother mourning from pain and even dying at childbirth. Fittingly, the queen's attitude towards the king is identical to a human mother towards her child. One of the king's first thoughts were that the nest was filthy. That's pretty understandable if you factor in that it's mostly built by ant droppings. Every other ant had no problem with the nest, and none that built a new one after the queen's death chose a much cleaner hideout. Meruem's humanity is hinted from his very first appearance by the fact that he didn't want a standard nest and instead chose a human palace. Lastly, the first ant that Meruem talks to after his mother is Colt, which is the first ant that had human genes in him. He goes to great lengths to make it clear that he only wanted that specific ant to interact with him. It should be noted that he doesn't talk to any other ants other than his guard until he questions Welfin, near the end of the arc. And by that time, Welfin was pretty human himself, and then Paul. Okay, here's a big one. During the Hunter exam, in the game with Netero, Killua notes that he hasn't been able to touch the ball, even though Netero hasn't used his right hand and left leg. Flash forward to his fight with Meruem, where Netero manages to unleash his ultimate attack despite only using these 2 same limbs that he didn't use with Gon and Killua, which implies that those 2 might be his stronger hands. Now here's when it gets crazy. Netero is never shown to be punching with the limbs he used in the game, presumably his weaker ones. Every time he is shown to be punching to either show his technique or fight, he is always shown to be using his right hand and his left leg. In the manga, even his spraying strikes are always using his right one, meaning he's favoring his right hand and his left leg, which tells us two things. 1. He has been intentionally holding back against Gon and Killua way more than we imagined, with Gon forcing him to use his good hand at the end. 2. Meruem's whole strategy against Netero was to identify his preferences and find an impossibly small gap in his defenses.
奴の型は有限なれど、その組み合わせは甚大。無限に等しい数に及ぼう。呼吸の流れをつかめさえすれば、幾多ある技の枝から奴がどれを選択するかを探るは十分に可能。無数にそそり立つ針の穴から正解を導き出し、正確に糸の矢を貫き通し。
Meruem recognized that Netero is more prone to use an attack utilizing those two limbs, meaning his right hand and his left leg, which is why he evaded towards the other side that would have been more vulnerable. He says so himself.
貴様が無意識に嫌う型、その存在が本来無限であるはずの選択にしるべを示すのだ。
Meruem found out an angle to attack from where Netero would definitely use his right hand to attack, leaving his left one defenseless.
You've lost your mind. You've lost your goddamn mind, Charlie!
Okay, here's some facts about limbs in Hunter x Hunter. Throughout the events of the series, Gon, Hisoka and Netero all lose half their limbs, and Crollo is prophesied to metaphorically lose them as well. Gon loses his left arm completely twice. As stated in the series, that's the same arm as the one that Kite lost, but it's also the same arm that Meruem rips off. As you might have noticed throughout the series, and the last 2 minutes of this video, there's a whole lot of abused limbs in the show. Here's the full list of limbs that were cut off in chronological order. Gladiator Guy, Hisoka's arms, Worm's arm, Gon's arms, Mosquito Chimera Ant's arms, Kite's arm, this Chimera Ant that actually has a name, Meruem's arm, if it counts Ikalgo's tentacles, Netero's arms and leg, all of Meruem's limbs, Gon's arm, and here's a full list of broken limbs, Gon's arm, Illumi's arm, Gon's arm, Worm's arm, Kurapika's arm, Squala's arm, Bakunoda's arm, Phaeton's arm, Neferpito's arm. Also, I should note that Gon is by far the character with the most limb injuries.